Do you think this Christmas is going to be considerably better than last Christmas?
Yeah! The question on everyone's lips. The PM keeping his fingers crossed. With a new COVID variant and the potential for tougher restrictions, the big unknown. But even turning on the Christmas lights didn't quite go to plan for Boris Johnson. Now, accusations that last year, when things looked very different for the rest of the country with a lockdown looming, staff here in Number 10 held a large party, seemingly breaking COVID rules, adding to a run of negative stories for the Prime Minister. A narrative the opposition are keen to capitalise on.
As millions of people were locked down last year, was a Christmas party thrown in Downing Street for dozens of people on December the 18th?
What I can tell the right honourable gentleman is that all guidance was followed completely.
The defence seems to be no rules were broken. Well, I've got the rules that were in place at the time Prime Minister of this party. They're very clear, Mr. Speaker. You must not have a work Christmas lunch or party. He's not denied it. He says no rules were broken. He's taking the British public for fools.
Back in late December last year, the country was heading into another lockdown and many of us were facing Christmas without our families. There were strict rules on who you could see. No parties, no mixing outside your household. And there were some business exemptions, but I've been told that in Downing Street there were a number of parties where staff gathered, enjoyed drinks and chatted late into the night. Number 10 says no COVID rules were broken. But how can both things be true? With Boris Johnson's reputation already taking a hit in the polls, how will this go down with the public?
When so many of us cancelled our Christmas and we find out that the person who told us to do that didn't, it just feels like a real kick in the teeth.
Maybe, you know, they were overworked, they were having a hard time.
Yeah, but so was everyone in this country. I was working in COVID ICU. I didn't get to have a Christmas party.
This year, the Prime Minister is urging us all to go out and celebrate.
You're very modest.
Thank you very much.
But if allegations of rule-breaking cut through, the hangover could be painful. Kate McCann, Sky News.
And Kate joins us live now. So how big a problem is this then for Boris Johnson, Kate?
Well, I think in the first instance, it's problematic because, of course, as the Prime Minister gets asked repeatedly about whether it's one rule for him and one rule for everybody else, it underlines that political attack line that Labour's Keir Starmer is so determined to pursue, that the Prime Minister isn't following his own rules. And it becomes even more important when you think about the fact that in just a couple of weeks' time, we are likely to know more about the new variant of COVID-19. And that could go either way. It could be good news, welcome news, or it could be damaging news for the country, and that might mean further lockdowns. Boris Johnson is presiding over a party that already is frustrated with him. They are worried about the way he's managing his party. They are concerned about the fact that he goes to lockdown measures, to more restrictions when they don't believe that he should. If he's going to ask them to implement more of those later on in December, this argument that during a time when some of us couldn't see our families, when we were heading into a lockdown, when things were dire for restaurants, bars, pubs, lots of people around the country, if it's found out that he actually ignored those rules and allowed his staff to, then making the argument to reintroduce them at a time when his party already doesn't want to do that will become really difficult indeed for the Prime Minister and for the Labour Party. This is the gift that keeps on giving. They would like to keep this idea alive that Boris Johnson says one thing to everybody and does the complete opposite. Of course, Downing Street say no rules were broken, but this story isn't going to go away easily.